So let's learn today. We've got myths. I love getting into the myths of things that are going on because we get to learn from some of that stuff. Lisa Thornton, she is an attorney. She is a family law attorney. She is not giving us legal advice today. We don't do that on Ron Siegel Radio. We're trying to educate. If you would like legal advice, well, give me a call at 800-306-1990. I will not give you legal advice, but I'll put you in touch with Lisa so she can give you legal advice. She's the one that's got all those licenses and degrees and education and all that good stuff. Welcome.
Thank you.
Glad to have you with us. So we're talking about divorce today, and it's going to ruin my life. Is that it? Is that a fact or a myth?
It's a myth.
Okay, so it's not going to ruin my life.
No. In fact, sometimes after divorce, you come out on the other end even better.
You know something? It's kind of interesting that you say that because I've got a friend of mine that's been on the broadcast several times, and she works in the bankruptcy arena. And in the bankruptcy arena, it's almost always the case that you get that what do they call it, the elephant in the room off your back, and you feel a little better by having gone through the process. Divorce sounds like maybe divorce is the same.
It can be, and it's all about your perspective. But sometimes people think that when they're getting divorced, their life is over, and really, it's just the beginning of your next phase of your life.
A new chapter.
Yes.
Well, and it's interesting because whenever I've talked to family lawyers, my question always becomes, there was some reason, and I don't know what it was, that you got married, right?
Exactly. You were in love.
In love or lust or whatever, right? We're not going down that road. This is a family show, right? But there was a reason for it. Now you think that instead of just parting amicably, you have to hate each other and try and destroy each other.
And that's not necessarily the case. In fact, sometimes I tell my clients, you can either pay me or you can use that money to put your kids through college. If you want to agree and try to compromise, you'll save a lot of money in attorney's fees, and you'll also save a lot of emotional angst that you and your spouse and your children, in fact, your whole community, can be affected by a divorce. So the more reasonable you are, the quicker, better able you are to move on with your life.
Now, before the broadcast, you and I'm not going to mention any names here, but you and I were talking about an attorney that actually likes to antagonize his clients so that they can build up the tab a little bit more. That's not your process.
That's not how I work. To me, I think I can zealously advocate for my client by helping the entire family. The family, the other, the spouse, the children, everybody's affected. So if one person is going through angst and you're trying to create fights, and not only is it costing you a lot more money, but it's also taking time out of your life that you could be moving on to something more positive.
A little more enjoyable. And you don't have to hate each other. You can actually pick up a phone and talk to each other if you ever wanted to.
Or meet for coffee like my ex-husband and I do.
Yeah, there you go. So let's get into some of the myths that are out there.
Okay.
Do I have to pay spousal support? Well, I don't, because I'm 35 years into a life sentence, but spousal support, do I have to pay it for life?
It never has to be for life. A short-term marriage is anything under 10 years. A long-term marriage is anything 10 years and over. So just because it's called permanent spousal support doesn't mean it's for life. It really depends. It depends on a lot of facets. There's the length of the marriage, the health of the parties, the age of the parties. There's a lot of things that go into how long, and you can always get a post-judgment. We call it a post-judgment spousal support modification. And you can file for that after divorce, years after the divorce, to get it modified, depending on if you're retiring. It's based on we call it a material change in circumstance.
So it's, I've never gone to law school. My wife told me I should go to law school. She told me that many, many years ago. And it seems like every course in law, because I talk to family lawyers and estate planning attorneys and bankruptcy attorneys and all these other attorneys, criminal lawyers, and they all have the same answer to half the questions.
It depends.
It depends. Is that like do they teach that in law school?
You're like the first day we got there.
Okay. So now I went to Chapman College. It was before it was a university, and the late Essie Adibi once said when he was teaching statistics, he didn't say it depends. He said, "No, learn my name because most of you are going to be back here for this class next semester." Right? So he didn't even say it depends. So you know,
I think I did had to do statistics. That was a tough class for me too.
Okay. So let's continue on. We are on a home and finance radio show, which I talk about everything that affects the roof over your head and your bank account. So how do I know what's mine and what's hers and what's ours? And if I have a house that was mine before we got married, do I have to share?
Well, I'm going to tell you the
It depends.
answer.
Okay.
It depends. And
Josh, we need a jingle for it depends.
Well, it depends on, did you make a down payment before you were married? Did any of your income during marriage go to a mortgage, lower the principal? That would be dependent on whether somebody has a community property interest in that real property. So a lot of different factors will change the answer to that question.
So there's a lot to it. Okay, so the bottom line on that one is, if you want some great advice on that, here's the issue. Go to mydymworkbook.com, mydymworkbook.com. Get a copy of the Divorce Your Mortgage Workbook. Am I going to answer your question as to whether you get to keep the house? No. But what we're going to do there is you're going to put in all this information. We're going to create a report for you and your attorney, right? So that they can actually go and check it out and have an organized way of taking a look at it. mydymworkbook.com, and we'll be able to get that information to you. We're going to continue our conversation with Lisa Thornton when we come back, learning more myths about divorce. We'll talk more about that. Continue our conversation this morning, talking with attorney Lisa Thornton, R.S.C. Law Group. We are learning. We are not getting legal advice because we don't do that on Ron Siegel Radio. If you want legal advice, no problem. Call me 800-306-1990, and I'll put you in touch with Lisa so she can give you legal advice because she's got the rights to do it. And I should mention, because of our dealings as a certified divorce lending professional, even there, we're not giving legal advice, right? We understand the intersection of family law, real estate, and home loans and taxes, but we don't give the legal advice or tax advice. We stay in our lane and just help there. So let's get back to our conversation, myths. And so far, we've talked about 3 different myths, and the answer to all of them has been the same. So we're going to see if we can find a different answer on something here. Okay, Lisa, my name is on the bank account, so the money's mine.
No.
Oh, it's not an it depends. Okay, no, it doesn't.
Not all yours.
Okay.
If you have a bank account during marriage, that is one of the assets that is divided. California is a community property state.
Explain what that means.
Community property means that all assets and debts are divided equally.
Okay, in the community.
Yes,
within the parties.
Between the parties, right? So each party would have a community interest in a bank account. Now, if the bank account, you can say it depends on this question too, because if they had the bank account before marriage and then it just existed during marriage, that's one thing. But if we use the word commingle, if you commingle those assets, then there could be a community property interest by the other party. For the other party in that account. But it doesn't matter what name it's the account or the credit card. That's the same way.
Same way. Okay. So I'm going to throw one extra issue in there. If you're getting divorced and making the mortgage payment out of an account that is commingled or has both parties' names on it, that can be a potential red flag problem for getting new financing down the road. So if you want more information on that, give me a call, because I understand the financing part. I don't know the law. That's you leave that to the lawyers to hash out. But I can just tell you that in part of the lending guidelines, there can be some challenges when you're making a mortgage payment out of a commingled account, depending upon how it's getting paid. So just be careful of that one. And if you get that, my DYM workbook, we put that information in there.
And another great thing that you can do is, instead of, if one of you is going to keep the house and the other one's going to keep other assets, you can, there's a way to sign away the deed. It's called an interspousal transfer deed, and that's beneficial to you instead of having to file a quit claim deed. So you get a tax benefit.
Got to have the tax benefits. Got to see, that's why you need. And I'm a big proponent. I'll ask you this question: do you work as a, I know you've got the attorneys, and in various parts of family law, either each party has their own attorney, or you have a team, a mediator, or a collaboration where they have their own attorneys, whatever. But do you think that someone's better off having a team of people, or just trying to go it on their own with just the attorneys?
I think having a team is very beneficial, because an attorney isn't a tax expert. An attorney isn't a mortgage expert. We know family law, so we know the law of divorce and custody and those issues, but we're not experts in tax. We're not experts, and we'll tell you to go speak to a CPA. But there is also collaborative divorce, where you do have a team that works on your case. I'm a litigator.
Okay.
So I litigate divorce. But yeah, I definitely think it's good to have a team.
You're probably, and I'm not trying to be facetious, but what I've seen so far, for the most part, is you're probably too young to be the collaborative. Right? It seems to me that the litigators, when they're getting ready to retire, that's when they go to collaborative. Because they're
worn out.
They're probably worn out. They're not looking to have to look over their shoulder all the time. It's a little more amicable.
Right.
And that's just what I've seen. I mean, I may be wrong, because obviously I haven't seen as many attorneys as you.
I definitely want settlement. For a party to settle, as I said earlier, that's the best thing that you can do, is settle. You don't want, and the judges say, you don't want a stranger in a black robe making the determination for your family. You know your family better than this stranger does. So anything you can agree on, you're all better off.
It's kind of funny you say that, because it's kind of, we talked about the same thing when I talked to estate planning attorneys, right? Everybody's got an estate plan. The real question is, did you create it, or did the state create it? Are they going to be the ones that are going to make the decisions?
Right.
And who's better to take care of, to know who's going to take care of your kids and your assets than you? And
Exactly.
You're kind of saying the same thing in the family law. Do you want the judge deciding who's getting what, or who's doing what, or?
And sometimes a judge, depending on their mood, there's law, but in family law, we're called a court of equity. So you're trying to achieve equity, and trying to do that, oftentimes I think I've had judges say, look, let's let both of you leave unhappy.
Yeah, something that's a good point. And one of the things that I've heard from other family lawyers is the judge has the law, which is the lowest standard, lowest common denominator. As
Right.
the parties, they can pretty much do what they want, as long as it's not violating the law. But it could be way more determinant, based on what they want to do.
And detail oriented. And and I've also heard judges say a lot of times, it's like, if you guys can't come to some sort of an arrangement, how do you expect me to? And I don't even know you. So a lot of times, if parties are just won't compromise, neither one will compromise, and nobody's being reasonable, it's upsetting to the rest of the community, the judges and the attorneys.
Sure.
To where it's like, okay, well then here's what I'm going to do, and then neither one of you get what you want, and so it just doesn't make any sense. And
is that a real statement? Because I've heard some people say that, well, the judge said, either you guys figure it out, or I'll make both of you angry.
I don't know that I've heard a judge specifically say that, but after I've been in court long enough, I figure out like,
It's an
oh,
implication.
okay, yes, exactly.
I'm not going to tell you that, but either go outside and figure things out, or we're not going to be.
Yeah, I see it right away. I
Yeah.
see it right away. And it kind of makes, even though maybe my client isn't getting exactly what they want because the judge, decided the third decision, it kind of makes me happy because if nobody's willing to compromise and nobody's willing to sacrifice, then this divorce can go on for years.
Can it really?
Yeah, I have one that's 5 years old that I'm going
Holy
in
cow.
to try to get a trial scheduled. And so it's a lot of money and it's a lot of time and a lot of emotional,
Our financial
costs.
services friends call that an annuity.
Yeah.
Let's get back to our conversation with Lisa Thornton, R.S.C. Law Group. No legal advice here. I think I've got that in every segment today. Sometimes I forget that, Lisa. So if you want legal advice, again, give me a call at 800-306-1990. I will not give you legal advice, but I will give you Lisa's number. So I see this one all the time, Lisa, because we're dealing with the financing, home finance, that they've got a bank account. There's X number of dollars in there, and all of a sudden that X is X minus a lot. And you look at it and you say, what happened to all the money?
Somebody went shopping.
Somebody went shopping, or the credit cards are, we had no credit card debt, and all of a sudden there's tons of credit card debt.
Right. And one of the important things is the date of separation. And that's an issue that it isn't when you move out. It isn't like we're still living together, so we haven't separated. The legal date of separation is when for one party, there's no chance of reconciliation. So that's the legal term.
At that moment.
Right. Like you could move out and be going to marriage counseling from two separate homes. So you're not separated because there's still a chance of reconciliation. So, and that's proven by the fact that you're going to marriage counseling.
Sure, there's a reason you're doing that.
Right. So there's different facts that come into play to set the date of separation. And that is really important when it comes to if the date of separation is February 15th, then if somebody goes and charges up the credit cards, doesn't matter whose name's on them, in March, that's separate property debt. Because
ooh, so save those receipts.
Exactly.
So you're going to make sure you save the statements.
The statements. Yes, we definitely need the statements to prove.
So it's all a matter of proof, and it's not a he said, she said at that point.
It's all evidence based.
Okay. So what about the kids? Are there myths that we need to know about with the kids? Always going to mom. Yeah,
my favorite one is that everybody thinks that at a certain age the child gets to decide. And in California, no, the child does not make the decisions for the family or the adults. At age 14, their desires will be considered, but that's just one factor that's considered.
Do they get their own attorney?
Sometimes.
Okay.
Yes, sometimes there's what's called minors counsel. And sometimes when the child needs their own representation, the court will assign minors counsel, or you could actually hire minors counsel for a child.
Is there an advantage to who files first?
No. One party files, the other party responds. You exchange financials, you come to an agreement, and then we file the judgment documents. That's the most simple divorce that can happen, is forms being filled out and filed. It's the parties and the emotions that make it more complicated.
Now, in family law, it used to be, and I don't know whether this is still the case, that that you didn't have to hire an attorney to represent you in court. But if you knew everything that you wanted as a union or as a community, you could go and hire an attorney just to fill out the forms for you, but they're not representing you. Is that still something that's able to be done?
I think some people will go to either a mediator. If you agree on everything,
right,
you don't have to have an attorney.
But who does the forms then?
You can do them yourself.
Oh, they're not that hard.
No, you can go into In Orange County, it's Lamoureux Justice Center, and there's a self-help area. So you can go in and you're considered a pro per, which means you're not represented by a counsel, and fill out all the forms. It really is more when you don't agree.
Okay, so you got to get the lawyers involved when you don't agree.
Right. And it actually, it isn't a bad idea to at least have a mediator, even if they're just filling out the forms and you agree on everything, because they know laws, some of the tax issues, some of, and your workbook. If anybody looks at your workbook, you can see how many things could come into play. So you can still have strategies that you use to benefit yourselves as parties to the divorce, that can help you save money and time. And
that's probably the best way, though, isn't it?
The best way is, yes, to get a mediator. That's the best way.
And it's probably the cheapest. And probably long term for the kids. That's the thing that always drives me crazy. And like I say, thankfully, I've never gone through divorce myself. I've watched a lot of people, obviously. And it seems like, the old saying that the kids are the big losers.
They are. And a lot of the laws, the standard is the best interest of the children. And I think that if parties divorcing would truly consider the best interest of the children, where children are involved, I think it's better for the family, it's better for the friends and the community.
So what does one have to look at as a time frame? I mean, you mentioned that you've got a case that's going on for 5 years now.
Oh, yeah. Yes, it could take. So when you get divorced, the first person files what's called a petition and summons. And then once it's filed, then the other party is served with the summons. So the date that party is served with the summons is the date that the county gets jurisdiction over the respondent.
The date that it's served, you said?
The date that it's served on the respondent. And from 6 months and 1 day from that date, you can be divorced.
That's California law.
California law. That's the soonest you can be divorced.
Other states can have different times.
Absolutely. Every state has their own
process.
Right. They're not all equitable.
Now, is with what's gone on the last few years with COVID, is that affecting the timing, or is it not affecting timing?
It's dragging it out a lot. Not only are we a lot busier as family law attorneys.
Yeah, we're staying home now, so now we really know who's the other party.
Exactly. You don't get that 8 hours a day away from each other.
Exactly.
Right?
I only work half time, so I'm 12 hours a day.
Okay. So you and your wife are doing great. Right?
That's right. That's why we see each other once a month. That's okay. So it can take some. So the quickest it's going to be 6 months in a day, and then it can go from there.
Yeah, before your marital status is single, you can be done with all the paperwork and be off on your merry way. And then just when that day comes, you just remember, oh, today's the day. Nothing really happens as far as what you need to do, or it could be years and years.
Years and years probably means expense.
Yes.
Now, I know we got to go, but I want one quick question.
Okay.
Do prenuptials help this process? Or is that
that's
that's a whole nother story, right?
That's a whole other
story.
Okay,
I know you're going to tell me it depends. I get it. I appreciate it. If you want more information about family law, which I guess, do you handle prenuptial agreements?
Yes, I do.
Okay, so you can talk to Lisa about that as well, or divorce, taking care of the kids, all that kind of good stuff. No, she's not a babysitter. I wasn't talking about that part. But as always, if you want to meet Lisa, give me a call, 800-306-1990, 800-306-1990.